Welcome to another thrilling episode of Explorers of the Lost Vaults, the podcast where we embark on a captivating journey through history, delving into the remarkable artifacts hidden within museums around the globe. Sponsored by Bible Interact. With your host, Dr. George Sparks, who will guide you through tales of discovery, mystery, and wonder. Together, we'll explore the enigmatic realms of museums, revealing the secrets and histories contained within their walls. What treasures lie hidden? What stories do these artifacts have to tell? Buckle up, because this journey is sure to be an exhilarating ride. Now let's dive into the adventure and unlock the mysteries of today's episode.
Good day, everybody. My name is Dr. George Sparks, and my special guest, really I should call him by now, co-host, Dr. David Graves, who received his PhD in Aberdeen, Scotland. And he always comes up with some really good information with his PowerPoints because he likes to go into detail and do the research. Now, me personally, I like to work in the museum. So he's doing the research, and I go into the museum vaults and get the artifacts. Just follow us on this. We're going to do the best we can to get some really cool artifacts to show. But number one, don't think that you're going to actually go to the museums to see these artifacts, because we get them from the vault. So we also have a small podcast that's called Explorer of the Lost Vaults. And the reason why we say that is because this is where the artifacts are coming from. So if I say the Museum of Archaeology and Biblical History in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you go there to see the artifacts, you're not going to find them because they are in a vault. So be forewarned is forearmed, and that's all fairness. David, I got a really good presentation today. I know people are going to like it.
And today, for an assistant, I brought my mummy. He's going to be pointing out some artifacts for us today in this room where we have actually laid out an authentic child sarcophagus on loan from the Museum of Archaeology and Biblical History. So I'm going to rotate the camera around. So with the assistance of the mummy, we're going to point out some of these items that are on this table. Everybody, you have a great time.
If you look at it very carefully, you got the mummy mask, and as you look further down, you can see it actually has a collar. It's called the broad collar, or the uzurk. It starts with a U or a W. So uzurk, something like that. Okay, it's still what it is. It's a collar, and it's supposed to be decorated in variant bright colors and also with floral patterns. So it has to do with life, symbolic of protection and a status of wealth in ancient Egypt. The collar is typically featured with rows of beads, floral motif, and a falcon-headed terminals. Why falcon? Because that's going to represent Horus. It's going to represent that sky god. It's going to represent the four sons of Horus that we have already talked about, and the preservation. Well, I'll show more pictures of the sarcophagus so people will know.
The sarcophagus itself, from the top to the lower torso region, I actually collected from an individual's house in Nyack, New York. About 6 months later, I went back to his house, and there was what he called a Ushapti box. However, when I brought it back to the museum, I noticed that there was a peg, and the peg actually fit into the lower torso of the sarcophagus. So it wasn't what we call a Ushapti box, and I'll explain that a little bit more, but it was the completion of this mummy sarcophagus. Now notice, if you will, that it's made out of small planks of wood, and there are no nails. It's held together by pegs. So with the assistance of the mummy, he's going to help point out these items that are on the table. First of all, let me go over the mummy case itself. It's actually a sarcophagus. It comes from two Greek words, meaning to flesh and eat. Flesh and eat. So what happens in the sarcophagus? Well, it's where the body decomposes and parasites eat the flesh. Let's look at this box, by the way. We have the mummy mask. And below that, we have the collar. And below that, we have a winged Isis. And a little lower, we have the funeral scene. The mummy is being prepared on a table. And right below it, if you look very carefully, you can see the 4 canoptic jars. And on top of the canoptic jars, the lids are represented as the 4 sons of Horus that are watching over the organs that are removed from the body of the deceased, and then it is mummified. And at the very end, the foot of the box, we have 2 anabuses. Now the mummy itself, with the assistance of the mummy, is going to pick up the carnage and let us take a closer look. Okay. Once again, this is the carnage. This is the mummy wrapping. I'm trying to get it to where I don't get a lot of glare. And you can see the collar, and below that, the winged Isis. Okay, you want to put it back down? This picture right here. That's a sketch. And what we're going to look at is the design of the mummy sarcophagus with the mummy inside it. And if you look very carefully, you see it's wearing like a beaded garment. All right. And these beads, when the coffin is open, are usually all over the place because the string that kept the beads attached has long since deteriorated. Now, many times when, let's say years ago, the 1820s and 30s, back when we had Egyptomania, the craze for collecting the Egyptian items by the aristocrats out of Europe and Spain and France, instead of trying to redo this garment, they would just make necklaces out of the beads. So I'm going to show you right behind this photo. You can see in this case, we have 1 and 2, what we call mummy bead necklaces. Now, some museums actually will go through a lot of work to reattach that and put it back on the mummy itself. And in the center, we have a winged scarab with the 4 sons of Horus. Now, Horus was the son of Osiris and Isis. And Horus had 4 sons, and those 4 sons are represented on the canopic jars. Now, with the assistance from the mummy, we are going to go over the items on the table, which I'm sure you're curious about. First is called a pilgrim's flask. It looks like a canteen. This dates from the late Bronze Age period, around 1550 to 1200 BC, where the sarcophagus itself dates from the late Pharaonic period to the early Hellenistic period. So at the latest, it dates to around 300 BC. That's the sarcophagus. So this is quite a bit earlier, and it's called a pilgrim's flask. A little bit below that, we have another item called a pyxis, and it was used to store perfume. Now the design is, and it's made out of terracotta. Once again, it's from the late Bronze Age, 1550 to 1200 BC. Now below that, we have some bronze weapons. We have the bronze duckbill axe. It dates from the 19th century BC, probably to the 17th century BC. And then we have what we call a Hyksos dagger from the 15th dynasty or 17th century BC. This is the Hyksos period. John's going to pick these up so you can see them. This is an alabaster vessel. In the tombs, because the flesh decomposes, both in Egypt and abroad, they would have these alabaster vessels to store perfume because sometimes the tombs would smell. We read this in the biblical narrative where Jesus approaches the tomb of Lazarus and asked the family to roll away the stone. And one of the sisters of Lazarus says, "It's been 3 days. It will smell." She says, "King James, it stinketh." So the alabaster vessel. This is also around 2,300 years old. Now, next we're going to show you a faience cup. Faience is an Egyptian glazing compound. And if you notice the hieroglyphs on it, it's very, very cool. And this dates to the 19th dynasty of Egypt or the 13th century BC. So 3,300 years old. Okay, next we have a cosmetic vessel in the shape of a baboon. This one also is made out of faience. Look at the detail. It is absolutely amazing. Now, John, you don't have to pick these up. That's the mummy. These are amulets that were once wrapped in the mummy cloth. So what would happen is, back during the time of Egyptomania, they would get the mummy itself and not just unwrap it, but really destroy it to get these amulets from inside the mummy wrappings and then sell them on the antiquity market. All right. Now, remember I showed you that photo of the mummy with, what was that drawing, with the mummy with the wings of Horus. It's the winged scarab with the 4 sons of Horus. This is an actual set on loan from the Museum of Archaeology and Biblical History, which we are grateful for. This is, as you can see, the holes in this faience items here are where it was once stitched to the mummy cloth, the mummy wrapping. Now, lastly, I have some small items. This one right here, very tiny, is a bronze Osiris, the Egyptian god of the underworld. Osiris, the wife of Isis, and the father of Horus. And once again, Horus is the wing god. The sun god, I should say. I should say sun god. Edit this. So this is a bronze Osiris, whose wife was Isis. His son was Horus, and he was the sky god who had 4 sons that are represented, once again, on the canoptic jars. And what did the canoptic jars have? But the entrails of the mummy. And lastly, or close to last, we have a Ushapti. The Shapti is a Greek word meaning to answer, and there usually be around 400 of these per tomb. There's only 365 days in a year, but why so many? Because you had a Ushapti for every day of the year to be of service to the deceased. And they were called to life when the priest would actually recite the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But this was spell 6 from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And here on this mummy, if you can see it, are the hieroglyphs of spell 6, Egyptian Book of the Dead, which caused this, which is recited and would raise the Ushaptis to life in the afterworld to do the work of the deceased. Now, lastly, I have one more item that was on the table, and this is called mumia. It's a mumia box. What he has in his hand is a small mumia box. During the turn of the 19th century, around 1830, when Champollion translated the Rosetta Stone, people that were pretty fortunate were actually collecting different items and amulets off of mummies, but the mummy itself was pounded into powder and was sold for medicinal purposes. And people would mix it with water And then they would drink it, believing that it was a cure-all. Can you believe that? Probably about 60 days later, they would be a mummy themselves if they did that. Well, everybody, this is the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, Mummy's getting ready to go back to sleep. So, everybody wave goodbye.
That's the end of our program today, folks. Thanks for visiting us. Thanks, David, and the Museum of Archaeology and Biblical History in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for loaning us these very rare items. Appreciate that as well. And also the sponsor, Bible Interact. Everybody have a great day, and I'll see you in our next podcast. Thank you.